I think it's a fair estimate that for every bad film adaptation of a novel, there's at least 10 bad film adaptations of a video game. Now, I know that there are some truly horrid novel adaptations, but have you seen the catalog of video game movies? It seems like whenever a new video game movie is announced, there's a collective groan, and for one reason. The producers and writers seem to have very little or no knowledge of the source material. Now, ever since the video game Max Payne was released in 2001, there had been discussion of a film adaptation, but it was passed back and forth between studios until its release in 2008. That's a long time when you think about it, and Max Payne is perfectly ripe for film adaptation. There's suspense and drama, film noir, and plenty of unique action. Maybe the film adaptation of this gem won't be that... Okay, you all know the punchline. Let's get into it. This is the 2008 film, Max Payne. Mark Wahlberg plays Detective Max Payne, a 3-year veteran of the Cold Case Unit who is consumed by the unsolved case of his murdered wife and daughter. When searching for answers in the underbelly of New York, he becomes entangled in a frame-up for the murder of a small-time drug addict and his former partner Alex Balder. Now Max is on his own and will bring hell on earth as he searches for answers. Now, here's the big problem everyone has with this movie, and one you could probably deduce. It bears only the slightest resemblance to the game. So we might as well just dive right into it. There are many minor characters from the video game that are more important in the movie. While this wouldn't be a problem, this leads to the fact that countless plot points are changed to accommodate the characters, and it's all the little things that hurt the movie in the long run. Beau Bridges plays B.B. Hensley, a good friend of Max and Max's father's former partner in the Force. In the game, B.B. was barely mentioned. In the film, B.B. is one of the few people who trust Max and stays in contact with him, which did not happen in the game. This is kind of a tricky situation because it gives more development to a character that is very important in the long run, where the game did virtually nothing. However, Max wasn't aided by anyone in his endeavors in the game. Now, I know Hollywood productions are all about big names and big casts, so a movie about one man wouldn't exactly be in their best interest. But with rarely having Max all on his own, they're kind of missing the point. In pursuit of Max is Jim Bravura, an internal affairs agent who is played by Ludacris. Interesting choice, but regardless, in the video game, Bravura is the chief of police and again is barely mentioned. I think this actually works to the movie's advantage, though, because it gives us a perspective that the video game didn't give us. Omari Nolasco plays Jack Lupino, a psychopathic drug addict who is actually of importance in both the game and the movie. However, in the game, Lupino is established as a key part of the mob, and Max originally assumes him his framer. In the film, he's just a drug dealer. As mentioned earlier, Alex Balder is played by Donald Logue, but his relationship with Max is completely different from that of the game. In the game, Max and Alex are good friends and work together after Max's family is murdered. However, in the movie, Max is bitter towards Alex for investigating him. Mila Kunis plays Mona Sachs, the sister of the drug addict who Max supposedly murdered. In the film, she hunts down Max because she assumes he murdered her sister, but forms an alliance with him when Max convinces her to help him find the true killer. In the game, the roles are almost swapped. Mona tells Max that Jack Lupino wouldn't have been responsible for anything that's happened to Max, and tells him to aim higher up the mobster food chain. Now, fans of the game may wonder why I haven't mentioned Nicole Horn, the head of the Acer Corporation. Well, she's in the movie, but is seriously downplayed. It's implied that she's behind the whole thing, but she is cast aside when the movie announces the new criminal mastermind they have in store. But I think it all boils down to the character of Max. In the movie, Max works cold case on the NYPD, who chases down leads to his family's murder on the side. In the game, Max works undercover for the DEA, but being an active part of finding out more about the dealers of the drug the killers were taking. Apart from that change, Max is actually represented very well. He's brooding, violent, and determined to get some answers. And Mark Wahlberg does a decent job of representing the part. At least how it's written. Now, that may seem like nitpicking, but when you actually see the movie unfold as a whole, it becomes more and more apparent that they have made incredible alterations to the story. Settings are added, removed, or altered slightly. There are new characters missing. You get the idea. It just boils down to a big pile of sort of. And that's probably what's most disappointing with this film. It just grazes upon the bare minimum of Max Payne characteristics and jumbles them up into a generic Hollywood action film. So fans of the game are probably wondering if bullet time or shoot dodging or slow motion in general is used at all. Well, you can probably guess, sort of. For being based off of a game so reliant on slow motion, the movie doesn't offer any creative examples of it. For the game that implemented shoot dodging so flawlessly, there's only one true example of it in the film. On top of that, there's no use of painkillers and only 2 examples of film noir style narration, yet another 2 iconic trademarks of the game that are missing. The trippy nightmare sequences are instead replaced by otherworldly drug trips, featuring the winged creatures, the Valkyries, that are only mentioned in the video game, which aren't explained well and leaves you wondering what reality is, and makes this already strange adaptation stranger. Well, do they at least use the Max Payne theme song? Nope. So some of you are probably thinking, well, that's just your video game geekiness dictating this whole review. And you're right. Even films that are adaptations of other media need to be appreciated in their own right. And there are plenty of casual viewers who have seen movie adaptations or remakes without prior knowledge to the source material. For example, while The Shining bears very little resemblance to the novel it's based on, it's still a very good film and can be appreciated for its own merit. But here's the problem. Even if you don't know the first thing about Max Payne, it's still not a very engaging film. In other words, if this movie was stripped of the very few Max Payne-related characteristics it has, it would just be kind of meh. The action is cool, but routine. The acting is fair, but the characters aren't all that interesting. The music is good, but generic action movie sounding. The story is intriguing, but too convoluted by its large cast of characters and art-housey sequences. So is there anything I liked about this movie? Well, it is shot very well. The constant snowing and bleak cityscape of New York frames the story well, and makes it the closest thing resembling Max Payne. And when the references to Max Payne are there, such as the Norse mythology, it actually is enjoyable for a while. One thing that amused me was that James McCaffrey, the voice of Max Payne in the video games, has a cameo as an FBI agent. But wait, if they could get the original Max Payne to be in the movie, why not have him play Max? The director said when he played the game he had only envisioned Wahlberg in the role. But shouldn't McCaffrey get an automatic trump card? And if it was a question of him being middle-aged, why not alter the timeline a little? Hell, they changed everything else in the movie. From any standpoint, the film Max Payne is a disappointment. It's mediocre as its own action film, and it insults the video game fans by having little to do with the source material, and that makes it hard to recommend to anyone. I give this film 2 painkillers out of 5, but you may need more after watching it. That is my diagnosis.